Broken Jacob's Quest, and last night I saw 2023's The Boogeyman, which is an adaptation of a Stephen King short story, which is something I didn't find out until way later. But before I really get into the movie, I just gotta say some things. First, I got the sniffles. I got a little bit of a cold or something going on, so if I sound different, if you hear me sniffing or coughing or whatever, that's why. I'll try not to cough into the mic, but yeah, got the sniffles. Secondly, so last night, during my viewing of this movie, was probably the worst theater experience I've ever had. Yeah, normally, you know, theaters, you hear some people make a little bit of noise every once in a while. You hear some people talking, maybe one person takes out their phone for a second. It can be kind of annoying, but you move past it, right? It's not that distracting. Last night, there were several groups, not even just one group, but at least several groups of, you know, probably teenagers, I would suppose. They're very young people, right? Which makes me sound ancient. I'm only 30, but they're young people. There were several groups who were all being very, very loud, and not just like kind of whispering, but talking, having full conversations while the movie's playing. And they're also moving up and down the stairs constantly, like they're leaving the theater and then they're coming back in the theater, and then they're leaving the theater again and they're coming back in the theater. And, you know, again, you do that maybe once or twice to go to the bathroom or grab a snack or something, whatever, but it was constant. It was bizarre. It almost felt as if they were intentionally trying to annoy people, because it was not a normal amount of talking. It was not a normal amount of leaving the theater and then coming back into the theater, up and down the stairs. It was very, very distracting. Like, weirdly so, to the point where I'm like, what? Is someone going to say something? And every time someone would shush these people, because several people did, they would say, "You shush," really loudly. And again, the movie is playing this whole time, and I'm trying to watch the damn movie. So yeah, that happened. And then, crazy enough, about an hour into the movie, the lights come on, and the movie stops, and the very loud group is saying, "Hey, play my movie. Why's my movie stopping? Where's my," you know, again, it's like, okay, you can't tell why. Maybe something happened and your movie stopped. Anyways, I don't know. I don't entirely know what happened. There might have been some kind of altercation outside the theater, but they ended up rewinding the movie about 20 minutes and starting from that point. So I did see the whole movie, but just be aware that this review might be like impacted by the way that I saw this movie, because wow, and I don't even know what the solution would be here, because, you know, look, I just got the AMC Pass thing where you can see 3 movies, right? And I love going to this movie theater. This is the only time it's ever been this bad. I was so surprised. It was I don't know, there needs to be a better system of like being able to get disruptive people out of the theater, because that was, you know what I mean? Like that definitely could have ruined this movie, of how I even see this, because of the way people were acting. It was crazy. Anyways, so let's get to the movie. So, The Boogeyman. Now, my first thing about this is that leading up to this, I found out it was a Stephen King movie, and I started hearing some buzz of like, oh, it's actually really good, this and that. And, you know, I was like, okay, that's interesting. You know, I hadn't really thought much of it. I thought it was going to be like a really cheesy, you know, kind of B movie. And they come out with a bunch of those every year, you know, like these low budget horror films that just aren't very well thought out. I'll say this up front. This movie is well made. A lot of the jump scares do actually work, and they try their best to like put in some actual human moments where you care about these characters, right? And again, maybe my viewing was impacted by everything else that was going on, but I did find myself kind of thinking, like, I've seen this before, and not just like, oh, there's some similarities, but like, if you've ever seen the movie Lights Out, which was a great movie, this one is very, very similar to that idea. There's a creature who, you know, at first they don't think it's real, because then only the kid thinks it's real, and then it can only be in the darkness, and it doesn't like being in the lights. And then there's also a moment where there's a character who has a they've kind of gone crazy and they've been obsessed with this creature. They're trying to stop it, and they're like, you know, they're trying to set a trap for it, but then the trap ends up failing because the crazy obsessive person like made a mistake, and then they end up dying. Like, you've seen all of this before, you know. It didn't really have much new to go with it. So in one sense, like, it's well made, but it also, like, there's not a whole lot surprising here, you know. There's a couple of really good scares, but ultimately it definitely did feel like if you've seen Lights Out and a couple other movies, you've kind of seen this movie already. My other thing is that this being a PG-13 movie, there were moments where I definitely feel like I could see where the edits were done. Like, there was supposed to be a very violent kill here, or, you know, there's a whole group of there's like bully girls that are bullying the the main character. They're brought over to the house. They come across some scary stuff, but then those girls who were really mean, usually they're the ones who die, you know. They just end up leaving the house, and then they're not in the rest of the movie, and it's like, oh, the body count of this movie is really low. There's like maybe one person, two people who actually die. And there's not a lot of blood. It's not very, you know, like, the kills are not very graphic. So it just, like, the whole time I'm thinking they've sanded off the edges of this thing. You know, they've really, like, it felt like a movie that easily could have been a lot more than it ended up being. And so that was kind of disappointing, to be honest with you. So, you know, not only have I seen a lot of this, like, the concept and a lot of the tropes have been done before, it doesn't really invent anything new about it. And ultimately I was left kind of like, oh, it could have been something more, you know. Like, it had the elements were there for this to be a better movie, and it just kind of wasn't, and it's kind of disappointing. So ultimately, if you've never seen Lights Out and you kind of want to see this concept being done with a creature that can only be in the dark, you know, go ahead. It's a fine movie. But for me personally, it just felt like it didn't have anything new to bring to the table. And, you know, I was kind of left disappointed. Again, I was in a bad theater and I have a cold, so, you know, not the greatest time for me in the movie theater. But in any case, yeah, that's the Boogeyman. I don't know. I was hoping for something a little bit more, especially once I found out it was Stephen King. I was kind of hoping they'd go a little bit crazier with it, and they really didn't, you know. It just kind of ends with them beating the monster, and no one really died, and I was like, okay, and that's it. They're good. So anyways, I'll see you guys later. I gotta go drink some water. All right, bye.